Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Democratic primary debate for Indiana's 8th Congressional District. I'm Rachel Chatham, an independent journalist from Southeast Indiana and the moderator for today's discussion. Scott Rogers from Who's Left is running production this afternoon. Today's debate is presented by the Progressive Indiana Network, an independent media collaborative supporting Indiana-focused progressive journalism, analysis, and commentary. This network provides a shared platform for writers, podcasters, creators committed to covering state and local politics with independence and accountability. You can learn more at progressiveindiana.net. Primary elections are where the direction of a party is decided, not just who carries the banner in November, but what that banner actually represents. This afternoon, we have three promising candidates. Mary Allen.
Hi.
Chris Rector. And Tabitha Zeigler. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Mario Foradori has originally RSVP'd, but has since been unresponsive. He's still on the ballot, though. Here's how today's debate is going to work. After each candidate's 2-minute opening statement, we've got a series of 10 questions covering foreign policy, accountability, immigration, affordability, healthcare, education, human rights, and taxation, Social Security, and labor. Each of you will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. Later, we'll move into the speed round, where I'm going to put a spotlight on the areas of genuine disagreement within the big blue tent. Because Democrats don't always agree, and primary voters deserve to know what kind of Democrat they're getting. We'll wrap up with closing statements. Let's get started. By random draw, the first statement goes to Mr. Rector.
Hi, how are you? My name is Christopher Rector, and I'm originally from Knoxville, Tennessee. I served 25 years active duty in the Army, and I'm also a service-connected disabled veteran. I'm a certified peer support specialist with the VA, and I also served as a sheriff's investigator. I'm running for the working and struggling families of this district. Every day, every month, the truth comes to call for these families. It comes to call at my home. The truth being, can I pay rent? Can I put food on the table? Can I put gas? Can I make it to my job? What happens if I lose one of the 3 or 4 jobs that I'm having to work? The working and struggling family has been robbed for over 50 years by billionaires, oligarchs, and corporations, and it's time to stop. As your congressman, I will not reach across the aisle and shake hands with wannabe white Christian nationalists, fascists, racists, and corrupt politicians. I will not play nice till everyone has a seat at the table, regardless of your race, color, creed, or who you identify as. Even Stephen, I don't pretend that I know all the answers, but I believe that we can build a system that represents all the people, regardless of who you are. Fighters fight, and we are supposed to fight for the things that we love. And this is our home. I will fight for it, and I will fight for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Yeah, hey, thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm Mary Allen. I grew up like a lot of folks in our district. My dad was a Teamster truck driver. My mom stayed home with us. So I've always been pro-union. I understand the value of that growing up in that home, and it has now enabled my parents to age in place. I myself have 3 adult daughters, 2 grandchildren, which is a big part of my motivation for being in this race and looking out for their future. And we don't see that happening right now. I've had the opportunity, looking back at my working career, never thought maybe politics was going to be in my future, but kind of looking back and seeing the different hats that I've had the privilege and opportunity to be able to wear, seeing where it's a lot, oftentimes where policy hits people. And it's kind of been my motivation and preparation a bit for this role. I was a healthcare worker for 15 years. I saw firsthand how our system is broken and has bankrupted so many. I worked alongside my husband in a nonprofit world for a decade in the center city with under-resourced youth, and saw how so much systems that we're supposed to support have actually failed so many of our most vulnerable. I've done a lot of community organizing. I was one of the original founders of the Haney's Corner Art District Association in Evansville Cultural District, and small business owner with a business focused on sustainability and environmental initiatives. I just sold that in December with the full recognition that I could not do both well, that and this campaign. So I'm glad that it can continue on, business on Main Street. So understanding that, rising costs, how they impact our small businesses, and kind of the red tape that keeps them up at night. I'm currently at-large city councilor in Evansville, where I have the privilege and opportunity of serving the people of Evansville. And I believe I can bring that same level of representation to DC on behalf of the people of the 8th District. I have a track record of showing up, never missed a meeting or a vote.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
Hi, everybody. My name is Tabitha Zeigler. My family's been in Indiana for a very long time. We can track our ancestry back to a soldier from the American Revolution, at least. I believe we've been in Indiana since at least 1822. I come from steel workers and farmers, currently still live on a working farm. So I understand the plight of the farmers right now. I understand how much it costs to put in a crop, what it takes to fix the machinery. And I certainly understand the impact of the Strait of Hormuz right now. And that would lead into food security. That is a problem. I'm for no data centers. I am very concerned about us just throwing those up as fast as we can without doing any really research about it. I'm a big advocate of everything environmental because I want to make sure that we have something left for our kids. I'm part of the LGBTQ plus community. I've been a union worker for the past 20 years at 2 different unions. I was with the airlines for 17 years. I was with the U.S. Postal Service for 4 years. I left my position at the U.S. Postal Service to pursue this candidacy. I thought it was really important to get working people and a working people's perspective into Congress specifically. I'm also part of the LGBTQ plus community. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I have autism. I've got 3 little kids with autism. So I'm very well aware of all the struggles that are happening, not just in this state, but in this nation with disability rights. So I very much appreciate you taking the time to come and hope that you'll vote for me at the end of this.
Thank you. All right, first we're going over foreign policy. Over the past 6 weeks, the United States has been at war with Iran, a conflict that many observers say was initiated at the urging of Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm always bad with his name, sorry. The human cost has been staggering, the economic consequences global. The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has triggered the international energy crisis. Only yesterday did Israel relent in bombing Lebanon, and only then did Iran reopen the strait, which is now once again closed, with the U.S. blockading Iranian ports. Meanwhile, Gaza and the West Bank remain under occupation. Both the war and the United States' relationship with Israel have divided Democrats. We'd like to address both. Where do you stand on the war with Iran, and is it time for Israel to fundamentally reevaluate its relationship with Israel? Ms. Allen?
When we went into Iraq, he was on that initial surge. And so I understand what it's like as a family member. I'm so grateful he came home, but as a family member, worried all the time about our brothers, sisters, sons, daughters being in harm's way. I'm a veteran myself and a member of Veterans for Peace. And our ultimate mission is to educate society, the public, on the cost of war, not just the financial cost, which is massive and coming into an economic crisis with this economic blockades now that they're doing, calling it economic fury or whatever, but also the human cost of war, which has been huge, not just for our service member, but innocent civilians all throughout the area. And it's devastating. It is a war of choice. Congress is abdicating, I think we need to repeal some of these outdated war resolutions. Congress solely has the right and responsibility to declare war, and we're seeing way too much unilateral decision making by the president, and it's dangerous. We've watched him threaten, to disseminate civilizations, threatening war crimes, and they didn't call Congress back in to deal with that immediately. It's embarrassing. Our enemies are becoming friends, and our friends are becoming our enemies, and we need to stand up and do something about it.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
We should seriously reevaluate our relationship with Israel. Right now, we are supporting a genocide. It's not just in Palestine, it's moving into Lebanon and Syria as well. The mass casualties of civilian life is extreme. The American public's not behind it. So right now we have a rogue government, if you will, that refuses to listen. But also we have Congress people that are abdicating their position. They could be doing something and they're not. Every time we turn around, we're having to hear a new horror story. And, now they're putting boots on the ground, which is horrible. I think anybody that's a millennial remembers the various wars that we've been through. I believe I was just in my first month of college whenever 9/11 happened. So I feel like my generation's pretty much been at war for a good period of time. I watched a lot of people that I knew go. I watched a lot of people that I knew come back not okay. I've got a lot of people that I'm friends with right now that are advocates that are trying everything in their power to convince people that we shouldn't be doing this. And ultimately, we should be practicing diplomacy, not war.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
Another forever war. We just got out of one. And I know this firsthand. I fought in it. I've seen the bodies of mutilated children, adults. I've seen what had happened to my friends that I served with. All this is for the billionaires, oligarchs, and corporation to make bombs to commit genocide in Gaza. And we are complicit in that genocide. And let's not forget about Lebanon, what's happening in Lebanon. We have to stop this BS. I mean, they're spending $1 billion a day for this. What could we do here in the 8th District with $1 billion? I mean, we could fund free universal child care, maybe. Fund some health insurance, get some health insurance. There's lots of stuff we could do for the working and struggling people of the community with this. But the Democratic leadership in DC says they just wail about it. And they say, well, we're just going to have to pay for it. No, you don't pay for it. When people struggling and working people ask for help, they say, no, sorry. We have to use that money to build bombs, to bomb schools, hospitals, and children. And this has to stop. We have to do something different.
Thank you. Our next subject is accountability. President Trump has defied court orders, weaponized the Department of Justice against his political enemies, attempted to strip birthright citizenship by executive order, launched an unconstitutional war against Iran without a single vote of Congress, and, if the articles of impeachment already introduced to the House are to be believed, committed bribery, obstruction of justice, and what one resolution calls outright tyranny. And that's a partial list. House Democrats have introduced multiple impeachment resolutions, but party leadership has largely sat on their hands. If you're sworn into the 120th Congress in January, is impeachment on the table on day one? And given the scale of what this administration has done, is impeachment and even removal even enough? Or are we talking about criminal prosecution? What does accountability look like? Ms. Zeigler?
We have not seen a government like this, I think, ever. Just the blatant disregard for the American public. Besides impeachment, I think we don't have really any other choice to proceed with criminal prosecution. We basically should be entertaining the next set of Nuremberg trials, because we're talking about war crimes, and it's not just the president at this point. It's seriously egregious that any president, not just him, would violate the nation's trust that way, would unilaterally start wars on his own, would be invading other countries, having conversations about taking over countries. Right now, we've seen them literally take out another country's ruler. Whether or not we necessarily agree with said ruler, we're supposed to be practicing diplomacy. We're violating international law by going into another country and removing their leader. We're just playing fast and loose with every country, and this is going to lead to World War III if we're not careful.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
This is why we have people are doing the No Kings protest, because what you have, the regime now in this country is ruled by a king. I mean, what can you do? He follows no law. He asks no permission. He just takes and takes and takes, to where the working family, the struggling family, they have no voice. And this has to change. I come here from Texas, and I've had many conversations with Representative Al Green. And he's the only one that will say impeach. Every time at the State of the Union addresses, he's there with his sign. And that's what I will do on day one. File for impeachment. We have to impeach, convict, and remove. And if he's been complicit, or if any other person in this government has been complicit and proven to commit war crimes, genocide, they will be prosecuted. And I will push for that every single day.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Absolutely. I think obviously the Constitution establishes systems of checks and balances for a reason, so that this kind of behavior, this kind of governing couldn't happen. And I don't know if we kind of just sat back and thought we were pretty secure in how that operated. And now we're just seeing that in our, we can't be apathetic, complicit anymore. And many are. And so yes to prosecution, yes to impeachment. And I will say, and it maybe doesn't just stop with him. There's there's people who aren't following the law and the rules, even like in releasing the Epstein files. I mean, there are many people that we will need to look into to hold accountable for the egregious acts that they're performing throughout this administration. And ideally, when we will turn over a ton of seats, we'll have the opportunity to get in there and do that and hold people accountable. And yes, focusing on impeachment, getting it out, and focusing on landmark legislation, because we've got a lot to do. It's not just going to be focusing on impeachment and prosecution, which yes, and we've got to get in there and get to work. And and no matter which party and what president, when they're governing by executive order, it is your job. It is a representative's job to hold that administration accountable.
Thank you. Our next subject is immigration. A few weeks ago, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem was removed from her post, shuffled into a made-up diplomatic role, while a different MAGA loyalist slid in to replace her. It's a small modicum of accountability for an agency that has blood on its hands, multiple U.S. citizens shot and killed by masked, unidentified agents, and whose funding would rank it among the top 15 military budgets on the planet. Majority of Democrats now support abolishing ICE outright, though elected Democrats have been far more reticent to say so out loud, calling instead for reforms. What about you? Can this agency be reformed, or should it be abolished entirely? And is it time for a broader conversation about whether the Department of Homeland Security itself has outlived its original purpose? Mr. Rector?
Absolutely. My first day in office, I will push to abolish ICE completely. I want to reform it with the old NIS, the National Immigration Service, that was in place before 9/11 and ICE was formed. Yeah, we have to stop this. I mean, they're kidnapping, beating, and murdering undocumented immigrants and citizens in the streets, on TV, on live broadcasts. They're not even trying to hide it. These aren't agents of the. It's an armed regime, and no, this will stop, and we have to reform it to where every undocumented immigrant has fair and due process. And when they go to court for their due process, they're not just grabbed as soon as they walk out of the courtroom if the judge says they're free to go, which is happening too. So, no, we need to stop that. Everyone has a right to due process, whether you're an undocumented immigrant, citizen, or what have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
Well, first off, I want to say we are a nation of immigrants. So it's ridiculous that we're not having that conversation, that we're not humanizing these people. So 100% abolish ICE. We can't rehabilitate these people or teach them a different way whenever they're shooting moms in the face. This is basically just rebranding from the slave catcher days. This is a serious problem. I don't think any American was expecting to see that. And when that happened, that changed a lot of people. I've been very impressed by the community organizing in Minneapolis and in greater Minnesota right now. They're a perfect example of what this nation should be doing, state by state. In the interim between when we can do this, when we can abolish ICE, I would much rather take that money and reinvest in data analysts, USCIS, to actually process paperwork appropriately. We can fund more judges, for example, more lawyers, for example, to actually make the process work for people. Because if we made it more efficient, we could actually prevent a lot of predators and war criminals from coming into the U.S. And so some of these arguments that these Hispanic immigrants are rapists and whatnot could be completely annulled that way, because if we had the resources and the money aimed at the right direction, that would help.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Yes. It's horrific what we're seeing. I believe immigrants and anyone else we can other are being used as scapegoats to really distract from other things as well. Absolutely, we need to not only abolish ICE in its current form and how we're seeing what's happening, but prosecute. There is no absolute immunity for these people who have been breaking the law, not following due process, not identifying themselves, killing people in the street. We've had 46 deaths in these concentration camps, in these detention centers. All of those things need to be looked into. We've heard several representatives leave these visitations and say it's just horrific conditions that we wouldn't want anyone to be in. And that's not who we are. So absolutely horrific. The money that we're spending on the secret police force, separating families, taking people from their appointments. We could be, instead of building camps, we could be building courts. We could be building out our court system, increasing the amount of judges and caseworkers to get through these backlog of asylum cases, create actual efficient and effective pathways. And I'm not saying not have a secure border. No one's saying that, but we're saying we have to have humanity and security aren't two separate things. They both exist together, and immigrants make us better. and if you don't care about the humanity of it, which is the most important thing, they're great for, our economy is better too. We need each other. Yeah. Awful.
Thank you. Next subject is affordability. As the federal government throws hundreds of billions at Homeland Security, Americans are struggling to pay their bills. Democrats have latched onto affordability as a central talking point in this election cycle, and voters are right to demand solutions. But a talking point is not a policy. Grocery prices, rent, healthcare, and childcare, the cost of being alive in America keeps climbing, and just saying we'll lower costs is insufficient. How? What do you see as the root cause of the affordability crisis, and what specific steps would you take in Congress to actually address it? We'll start with Ms. Allen.
Yeah, saying affordability crisis, affordability isn't just some buzzword that the administration would like us to say. It is an actual crisis, and it is a policy choice. Poverty is a policy choice. We are hurting our people instead of helping and resourcing and ensuring that there is affordable housing, job markets, affordable groceries. Even with our farmers, and food security is national security. But we need to have policy that creates access to affordable childcare, and there are some things being presented now talking about childcare for all. That if you can't afford childcare, I was a single mom for years. I was a single mom, had to live with another single mom so that we could make ends meet, and I worked 2 jobs to afford childcare. I don't know how families are doing it now, married or single, and we've just created the biggest transfer of wealth with this reconciliation bill from last year, going from the working people, giving it in tax breaks to billionaires instead of helping with basic infrastructure and livelihood and affordability for the rest of the 99% of us.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
Republicans saying affordability and trying to improve costs and things like that is laughable at this point. We have a lot of other nations that we can use as models to institute a system over here that would actually help people. We could start by having universal health care, universal child care. If we could take $1 billion to $2 billion a day right now, for example, for this war that everybody's saying we didn't have money. We don't have money for autism. We don't have money for ABA. We don't have money for SNAP. They're, increasing the prices for insurance, for example. If we could use some of that money that we clearly have to fund these programs for the American people that are already working hard enough, right? That would be a great start. Obviously, all the tariffs, all of the backroom deals, all that stuff has to go. People have to be held accountable because right now it's like a sieve and money is just flowing. Money is just not flowing for the middle class and the lower class because we have now a resurgence of the elite again. And, it's obscene. It's obscene at this time that we're giving tax breaks to corporations and data centers and people like Elon Musk are becoming trillionaires whenever we have American children in this country being trafficked and starving.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rector?
Why can't we have universal health care? Why can't we have universal child care? Why are we funding endless wars and bombing children? All this money, $70 billion that ICE wants, $1 billion a day for an endless war. We could take this money and we could fund a universal child care program, a universal health care program, and instead of committing genocide with it. One of my core things I'm working on a plan for universal child care. They have this in New Mexico now, and it's free, absolutely free, and it's no cost to the taxpayers. I've been working with some of the people in New Mexico on how they started that, and I'm going to try to implement this first in the 8th Congressional District in Indiana, and then hopefully for all of Indiana. Because can you imagine the child care costs that family pays now? What if you didn't have that? What if that could be in your budget now? That would take away some of your worries and help you sleep better at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next subject is actually healthcare. One of the primary drivers of the affordability crisis is the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. Americans have been fighting over how to deliver high-quality, affordable care to the most people for decades and have largely failed, due in no small part to extensive lobbying from the insurance industry. This is a problem the rest of the industrialized world has already solved because they understand something the American political class has been slow to admit. The free market will not deliver the results we need. The government intervention is necessary. Under Obama, we got the ACA, undermined from the start, insufficient by many progressive standards, and mortally wounded by Republicans. What's your solution? More market competition? A bolstered ACA with expanded subsidies? A public option? Medicare for all? A hybrid model? And how do you get there? Ms. Zeigler?
I think that we should use the foreign governments as a model. I used to travel back and forth to Europe a lot. I know a lot of U.S. citizens right now that are expats in Mexico and Canada and Portugal. Portugal is the #1 place for Social Security recipients. If they're not going to Mexico, they're flooding into Portugal because Portugal has one of the best healthcare systems in Europe. And our aged population who would be experiencing more medical issues, they want to go and contribute their money into a system that they can have a healthy life in. It wouldn't be very hard to subsidize this. We could start by taxing the 1% appropriately. They are the only ones actually receiving the social services that were set up by the New Deal. Now it's for the elite. They're funneling money out of programs in a nondescript way. For example, like Walmart is a perfect example. Most rural communities have Walmarts, and yet they intentionally make sure that their staff is underpaid so that they can benefit from SNAP and so that they don't have to pay them a livable wage.
James, I'm live. Sorry. All right, Miss Allen.
And I know we've said it in the past and throughout this time. It's like we have money for war at $1 billion a day. We can give tax breaks to billionaires, which is taking many off of healthcare. So we can figure out how to have healthcare for all of us. That is a problem that can be solved, and it is one very unique to the United States. So because other people have done it. Whether that looks like a public option, which I'm in for of some sort of where you are not coupled to your employment. I mean, that's a part of it, keeps people from being able to work where and how they want. I was on door knocking yesterday, speaking to a woman who was recently widowed just 2 weeks ago, and she's not old enough for Medicare, and she's working at Walmart and trying to figure out how she's going to navigate her healthcare while figuring out the hospital bills from her husband and how things were coded. And it's so wrong. And those aren't the things that she should be worried about right now. Whether it's, like I said, hybrid. Right now, I would be voting for the ACA subsidies. We're kicking millions off of healthcare and people are dying. That's a temporary Band-Aid, but it helps. I was a small business owner. It helped me have insurance. That was a temporary Band-Aid. So we've got to have the Band-Aids until we can get to the overhaul solution of Medicare, if you want to call it Medicare for all, a single payer option, something to where and it may take a transitional period, whatever that looks like, whatever we have to do to figure it out. We deserve healthcare. It's a public right. It's a human right.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
My other question, why can't we have universal health care? It's because of big pharma and the top 1%. It always goes back to them. Now, for me, I've been afforded some different opportunities by being a service-connected disabled veteran and other veterans. I get my care at the VA for no cost. I don't, there's no cost for medicine, appointments, hearing aids, eyeglasses, surgeries. And I know they did this because when you get it at the VA, they get a pair of glasses, lenses, exam, and everything for a veteran for $1. Okay. So I want to build a system of universal health care and try to build it around something like that. And yes, like in Europe, I was stationed in Europe for a while. And even in Japan, I was in Japan for 8 years, and they had a very low cost monthly. I think it was like $25 to $50 a month for health care. So we should be able to do this, but we have to break the stranglehold of big pharma, billionaires, and oligarchs. They control everything here, and we have to fight back and take it back from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next subject is education. The Trump administration and its allies have taken a chainsaw to the Department of Education, slashing funding, pushing voucher schemes that siphon public dollars into private and religious schools, and threatening the existence of the department itself. For arts and music educators in particular, the cuts have been devastating. Title I funding that supports schools in low-income communities, like many in Indiana's 8th District, is on the chopping block, and for the educators themselves, student loan debt, stagnant wages, and an increasingly hostile political environment are making teaching a profession young people are fleeing rather than entering. Corey in Clay City is studying to be a music teacher and wrote in to ask how we ensure that Corey and all Hoosier educators will have a sustainable career. Mr. Rector?
Man, I'm glad you brought that up because music is life. First, I want to do away with all this school choice and stuff here. We have to fully fund public education before we have any school vouchers. That's all political, and it only benefits certain people. It doesn't benefit the students. It doesn't benefit the teachers. So we have to invest in public education and make sure that public education has the funds for music, science. And also, I would like to see, I know when I went to high school, I took roofing. I would like to see trades be implemented back into high school. So if you can't go to college, when you leave, you can have a trade to go to. I just think it's very important that we fund public education and take away any profit that people are making from school vouchers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
I agree 100%. We need to fully fund public education. We cannot fund private schools and our public schools. The only choice in that is the private schools get to choose whether they accept certain kids or not. And our public schools don't do that. They take everyone as they should. And my daughter's a 4th grade public school teacher, so I'm passionate about our public school systems, and we've been seeing, the dismantling of the Department of Education. And speaking of, we need to empower experts back into the Department of Education. McMahon is not it. We don't need party loyalists as these secretaries. We need to bring experts back. We're seeing shrinking funds for our schools, which is in increased classrooms. And we're seeing what that's doing to our schools and our teachers. We need a more affordable higher education. If you want to choose, we're seeing the strict caps on borrowing. We're seeing, I would love to see us fund more apprenticeship programs with cross-state registrations. the technical career, colleges, apprenticeships, all of the options need to be on the table for our next generation of workers and students.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
I'm going to hop back to Europe on this. There's a reason why Finland consistently is always #1 in education. It's because they're putting their students first. It's because they take care of their teachers. In Finland, one of the highest regarded professions that you can have is a teacher. It's really hard to get into that position. If we don't start to invest in free, like standard education, all the way up. Like we should start with free and standard pre-K. They have special pre-K in some schools, but not all. So we need to make that mandatory for every school. There are other countries, I believe Czechoslovakia is one, where they have a program where you can be off of work for 2 years for maternity leave, and then essentially your child just rolls into the special pre-K. I think they only have to be 3. A lot of countries do that, right? So then it relieves some of the burden off of the parents if they can transition like that. We need to make sure that we have adequate teachers, of course. They have to have proper certification. Not everybody's built to be a teacher, and that's okay. But for those that actually want to do that profession, we need to make sure that they have the training and that they can do it well, that the classroom is smaller. So these kids are actually getting an effective education. And yes, we absolutely have to have training programs that for the kids that want a trades-based job, that they can jump right into a job.
Thank you. Our next subject is human rights. Schools have been one of the primary battlegrounds in the culture war over LGBTQ rights, from book bans to bathroom bills to the ongoing fight over transgender student athletes. And the Democratic Party is having an internal argument about how to respond. California Governor Gavin Newsom has argued that Democrats need to be more culturally normal, language that prompted immediate pushback from LGBTQ advocates who heard it as a signal that the party is willing to trade their rights for political expediency. When pressed, Newsom clarified he was talking about specific issues like gender-affirming care for incarcerated people, but the damage was done. The LGBTQ caucus in his own state have already called him out for siding with conservatives on transgender athletes in schools. So we want to put the question directly to you. Is Newsom right? Do Democrats need to be more culturally normal? And where do you draw the line between smart politics and abandoning the people who need the party's protection most? Ms. Allen?
That's an interesting question. I don't know what culturally normal means. I don't know how to find that. I hadn't heard that. I just think we need to love people well at the end of the day. Like that's where I filter through any decision making. People want to feel loved, valued, have belonging, no matter how you and that's the beauty of where we live. That's the beauty of America. It is liberty and justice for all. It doesn't matter where you're from, how you look, what religion, how you identify, who you love, how you worship. We're free to do those things, and I think we need to protect those. I mean, it's civil rights, human rights for all. I often say I am a woman of faith, and that faith compels me to love my neighbors, and that means all of my neighbors, no matter how you identify. And we want a commitment to human flourishing, period. And that is being free to live and be how you want to live and be. And right now we're seeing too much of a commitment to division, oftentimes a distraction instead of and destruction and tearing of people down and othering people versus choosing love.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
Well, I'll just start off by saying trans rights are human rights. It's just like the poem says, once they come for one, they come from the unionist. They're eventually coming for you. This is your indication that things are backsliding very quickly. We're seeing it with our immigration system, obviously. If you're a Black or a brown body in this country, you were already nervous. Now you're hypersensitive to what's going on. The trans community is the same way. Being part of the LGBTQ plus community myself, I understand what's going on. I've actually been beaten for being gay. We can't roll this back. It doesn't matter what how someone identifies, how they dress. Gender affirming care actually happens more in the straight community. Let's say you have a condition that men get this sometimes, where their pectoral muscles, their breast tissue is larger than they would like, and they end up getting a breast reduction. They don't call it that, but that's what it is. So if it's okay for one, it's okay for all.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
Yep. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As Tabitha said, it's human rights. It's your right to live your life as you wish. We hear all this stuff about, women or men identifying and playing in a different gender sport or something who they identify with, and the restrooms. This is not a problem. The problem is the people in government now using it to push something else, but using this as a kickoff. When I ran for state representative in Texas, one of the current representatives down there, who is now on President Trump's minister board or something. I saw a picture in the paper the other day where this representative had his hands on the president, praying for him and stuff. So that representative, he's the one that implemented the drag law in Texas. You can't go to a drag show. If you dress in drag, it's a crime and stuff. And I was presented to that, and my response was a little cross-dressing never hurt anyone. Live your life as you wish, and don't be forced to live your life like you don't want to live it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll talk about taxation. We just picked on Gavin Newsom. Let's do it again. When asked at the New York Times Dealbrook Summit how he would call for a big tent Democratic Party while being adamantly against a wealth tax, a policy supported by 95% of Democrats and 70% of all Americans, Newsom implied the tent needs to include billionaires. Meanwhile, Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders have been barnstorming the country, arguing the opposite, that the ultra-wealthy have rigged the tax code in their favor for decades, and it's time to unrig it. Where do you stand? Do you support a wealth tax? What about raising the top marginal income tax rate, corporate taxes? And how do you respond to the argument that the rich will just pick up and leave? Let's start with Ms. Zeigler.
Well, I think they tried that in Massachusetts. They were threatening them and saying, if you do this, we will leave. And they're still there. Boston is a very popular city, and all of the rich people are still there. They stuck around because not only is it where they're from, but they like the amenities of Boston. They like that it's diverse. Areas like Indiana, for example, could benefit from greater taxation, because they always tell us, right, we need to decrease taxes because we need industry. We need industry to come here, so we need to give them tax breaks. Well, San Francisco and LA and Boston, they tax at a higher rate, and people love going there. Like, California has more billionaires than the majority of the US. There's absolutely no need to worry about them not receiving an appropriate tax. If they are participating in, our social services that the middle class and the poor can pay for, public roads is just a perfect example of that. They have cars. The difference in the cars might be, One might have a Beamer, one might have a Toyota, but they're still using the same roads. So the billionaires need to be taxed appropriately. And if we start to do that, we will have the money we need for other programs.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
I absolutely agree, Tabitha. Absolutely tax the top 1% and give this money back to the working and struggling families that they've robbed for the last 50 years. So, yeah, absolutely, I agree. That will be one of the plans, is to get back this wealth to the working family. The top 1%, they go to bed at night dreaming about which beach condo are they going to buy, which sports car are they going to buy, while the working and struggling family a lot of times don't get to sleep because they're worrying about how they're going to pay their next bill. Are they going to have electric in the morning? You know, will they be able to move from their car into an apartment? So absolutely, they robbed us and we're going to get it back.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Absolutely, I would be in support of that. I think Warren's plan that they've put out makes sense. Every dollar over 50 million pays 2 cents. Every dollar over $1 billion, I think, are 1 cent or 2 cents, and over $1 billion is 2 cents. I agree with that 100%. These billionaires have built, and corporate income tax, we saw that big decrease in 2017. I think we need to raise that back up. These billionaires have built their businesses with these incentives and benefits provided, but then don't want to give back. And to the point where people say, well, they'll leave. We have seen this in other places, and they haven't left. They've stayed because there is quality of life. And when that happens, and when there's more opportunity to build quality of place and quality of life. One of my first things in city council, I said, let's look at this at our tax phase-in sheet, our tax abatement for people coming to our area. So and it hasn't been redone since 2017. And we're deep diving into that because we're not rewarding people, even for, if we do it, we're not rewarding people for offering a living wage and those types of things for what our current living wage is in this area, those types of things. So that was one of the first things I started to address even on our local city level. So yes, higher corporate income tax, raise that back up a bit. Doesn't have to be its original, but raise that back up. And yes, I would support the wealth tax.
Thank you. Next, we'll be talking about Social Security. Without any changes, Social Security is headed towards insolvency by 2032, just 6 years away, at which point benefits would automatically cut by nearly 28% for every recipient, regardless of age or need. This is not a distant problem, it's increasingly urgent. Republicans have offered their answers: privatize the system, let Wall Street manage your retirement, or raise the retirement age so you work longer and collect less. Progressives have a different answer. The payroll tax currently exempts every dollar a wealthy earns above $176,100. Lift that cap, make the rich pay into the system on their full income, and the math changes dramatically. What is your plan to keep Social Security solvent? And what do you say to the Hoosiers in their 40s or 50s who have paid into the system their entire working lives and is now wondering whether that promise will be kept? Mr. Rector?
I mean, for me, and I'm on Social Security, I just started. My question is, why is the government involved with Social Security? The government don't pay for Social Security. We pay for Social Security. We fund the working class, the struggling people. We're the ones that fund Social Security. I mean, it comes out of our paychecks every week, every month. This money belongs to us, the working people. Why is government deciding who gets it, privatize it, or whatever? Is bullshit. Oh, I apologize. I mean, this money belongs to the working class, the struggling people. So no, the government don't need to be involved in Social Security. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
Yeah, I think this is obviously a complex issue, an important one to figure out for sure. I would say it's a non-negotiable. It's something that we have to figure out. It's non-negotiable. So, I was talking at a community event where I visited, and we were talking about Social Security. It's been coming up a lot, and an elder gentleman said he and his wife are living off Social Security, and she said she was making $16 an hour when she went to retire, and they're both living off of that. And he says, I chop my firewood for heat in the summer, and in the winter, and I grow a big garden in the summer to help us with our grocery bill. That's how tight they're living already. And he said, but I'm getting older. I don't know how long I can continue doing that. And those are the stories that truly, we carry with us, that that this is a non-negotiable. And whether that's raising that cap, I don't think raising the age is an option. That's not an option. People plan out for these things. And I don't think that would be a trigger that a lever that we could pull. And then taxing the wealthy in a way where it's not, where they do it really slyly with their investments and those types of things. So we need to make sure they're paying into the system with what they're actually making as well.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
So I had a chance to take a look at that, and it's just highway robbery, honestly. You already are at the top of the pay scale, and you're getting the freebies. And then on top of it, right? Like, when you're ready to retire, you have had now the extra opportunity to invest better at a higher rate to improve multi-generational wealth, and you're drawing from Social Security. But like, the percentile of that is not adequate, right? So maybe we should consider restructuring it in a way that if you make a certain amount of money, then you can no longer draw from Social Security because you don't really need it, right? If you are in a lower wage gap, for example, maybe find some way to allow those people to have an equitable contribution. The government absolutely should not be privatizing that, because that's our money. I'm in my 40s. I'm going to be 43 this year, and I'm already thinking that's not going to be there for me. But I've been working since I was 14 years old, so I've contributed to it, and it probably won't be there. They're expecting our kids and our grandkids now to contribute to this for the upper class again. It's just highway robbery, and we need to figure out a better way to tax the upper class, because they're taking advantage in every aspect of our government that they can.
Thank you. Our next topic is labor. Democrats have been the self-proclaimed party of labor for nearly a century. The PRO Act, the most significant expansion of workers' organizing rights since the New Deal, has been a Democratic priority for years, though they haven't gotten it passed. Public sector unions, teachers, government workers, they remain reliability in the Democratic column, and yet blue-collar private sector trade union members, the pipe fitters, electricians, the iron workers, the Teamsters, have been drifting towards Republicans for decades. In a district like this one, that drifting isn't abstract, it's the difference between winning and losing. So we want you to do two things: diagnose why it's happening and tell us what you specifically would do in Congress to win those workers back. Not just union leadership's endorsement, but the rank and file votes. Ms. Allen?
Yeah, absolutely. The PRO Act, is one thing. We have to protect our unions, their right to organize 100% and have their back. They've had ours. I mean, they helped us with the 40-hour work week, the 8-hour work day, all the things that no child labor, all the things that maybe we take for granted and don't really think about, but they gave us, and we need to protect their rights to organize. And that will always be a North Star for me with our unions.
Thank you. Ms. Zeigler?
Democrats have been abandoning the working class for the past 40 years. So people from areas like mine that would have been union or were union watched their jobs go away, watched their factories close with NAFTA, for example. Democrats were in charge when NAFTA happened. So I don't think that it's exclusively a Democrat problem, because obviously there were many hands involved. All of this it started with Reagan, but that is how workers and union workers have lost faith. And that is why they have drifted towards the Republican Party, because a lot of these areas were highly industrialized, right? Like, you used to have steel workers, for example, that were unionized. Up at Bethlehem Steel, for example, I had relatives up north that worked at Bethlehem Steel. And back then, in the 60s and 70s, they were unionized. They had good work rules and all of that. But little by little, their companies did different things. Like, it's not just Indiana. Several states have found ways to gut their union jobs. And we haven't really seen a clear path back. The Republicans essentially just promise them that they will lower taxes and make their life easier. And they are just hoping that they are right. And along the way, they've just never seen any hope.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
Yeah. My father and my older brother were Teamster members for over 40 years. And I've walked the picket lines with them during strikes. I could see why the Teamsters and maybe some of the other unions are looking at Republicans, because I think a lot of them is not buying the BS that the elite of the Democrat Party is selling now. I'm absolutely for union labor, but in Indiana, for it to become effective to where the union and the workers of, union workers can negotiate better, we have to get or elect state representatives and state senators. In order for the union to function here right, we have to appeal the right to work law in Indiana, because with the right to work law, it prevents and hampers unions from negotiating or from someone starting a union where they work. So that for the unions to really take hold and work to where people can have a living wage, we have to repeal the right to work law here.
Thank you. All right, we spent the last hour going deep on 10 issues. Now we want sharp, quick answers on a dozen more. Issues where not all Democrats agree and where we think voters deserve to know exactly where you stand. There's no time for nuance here. These are yes or no, or in one case, give a number. Let's start. Do you support a federal moratorium on new data center construction? Ms. Zeigler?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Rector?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Do you support expanding the Supreme Court beyond 9 justices? Rector?
Yes.
Zeigler?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Do you support statehood for DC, Puerto Rico? Alan?
Yes.
Zeigler?
Yes.
Rector?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you support a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College? Zeigler?
Yes.
Rector?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Do you support federal legalization of recreational cannabis? Rector?
Absolutely, yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Zeigler?
Yes.
Do you support free public higher education? Alan?
I'd love to see it. Yes.
Rector?
Yes, it gives someone a chance at a new skill set.
Zeigler?
Yes.
Do you support cancellation of all outstanding student loan debt? Zeigler?
Yes.
Rector,
Yes, ma'am.
Allen,
Yes.
okay. Do you support universal federally funded childcare? Rector,
Absolutely. And I'm working on a plan for that now.
Zeigler,
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Is Hakeem Jeffries your candidate for the speaker? Allen,
No.
Zeigler,
No.
Rector. Rector? No?
Elite.
Okay. Do you support a federal assault weapons ban? Zeigler?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Rector?
Yes.
Do you support abolishing the federal death penalty? Allen?
Yes.
Rector?
I do. Yes.
Zeigler?
Yes.
The federal wage has been $7.25 since 2009. What should it be? Give me a number. Rector?
20.
Zeigler?
35.
Allen?
Are you saying eventually or right now? If we changed it right now?
What should it be?
17.
Okay. Thank you for that lively speed round. Finally, we'd like to give each of our candidates 2 minutes to make their closing arguments to tell the voters of Indiana's 8th Congressional District why they are the right person for this moment. By random draw, Ms. Zeigler will go first, followed by Mr. Rector and Ms. Allen. All right, Ms. Zeigler?
Okay. Well, I'm from here. I was born and raised here. I'm a multi-generational Hoosier, and I'm going to fight like hell for you in Congress. We've got so many bad things going on right now. We need people that understand with lived experience, that can speak to the difficulties with things like IEPs, complex Medicaid system. We need someone that was actually in a union, that understands picket lines, collaboration. I think that it's very important to have people in there that are domestic violence survivors. With everything that's happening right now with the Epstein files, I suspect that there's going to be a lot more that comes out. And ultimately, we just need people in there that care, that are from the working class, that are speaking from these pain points that our constituents are. And right now, that is definitely not Mark Mesmer. So if you want someone that's from the working class that understands the struggles, please vote for me. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Mr. Rector?
Party has lost its way. There's many different types of Democrats now. We have progressives, Democrat socialists, and now it's become the party of the elite. The Democratic Party has a great legacy of movement. We were the movement of the civil rights movement. We had the women's suffrage movement, the LGBTQ movement, the movement of disability, all these great things. We have that legacy of fighting for these and getting these. These movements weren't won because somebody wrote a letter to their congressman asking for it. These movements were won in the streets, the hills, and the halls of power. And we have to stand and make that stance again. It's time to not be nice. And I don't say that in a violent way, but we have to fight and make a stance. So everyone in this party, progressives, socialist, Democrats, are all included in the party. Thank you. And I appreciate the Progressive Indiana Network for having this forum today. And thank you, Tabitha and Mary.
Thank you. Ms. Allen?
So I want to take 2 seconds to go back to the minimum wage. So I'm thinking incrementally how we have to get there, but living wage, our minimum wage should be a living wage, which right now in Southern Indiana is like $20.85. So, and it should go up incrementally as inflation and living wages need to go up. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to hopefully earn your vote. I'm not haven't spent my life in partisan think tanks. I've spent around kitchen tables, balancing budgets, and making payroll. I am not loyal to. I'm not some party loyalist. I would be loyal to the people of the 8th District. I think you need a representative who represents you and works for an economy that works for you, not just the 1%. We have a ground game. We are on the floor, we're canvassing, and we're phone banking almost every day. I think we have the momentum is built up, and we have what it takes to beat Mark Messmer in November. And I'd appreciate your consideration on May 5th. And hopefully when I do get to DC, I assure you I will be your voice, your advocate for your healthcare, your pocketbook, your dignity, and ultimately our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all our candidates for being part of this afternoon's conversation. Running for office is not easy. It's an act of vulnerability that takes real courage, and that deserves recognition regardless of where voters ultimately land. On behalf of everyone here today, I want to thank our 3 candidates for their time, their candor, and their willingness to engage seriously with the hard questions voters in this district deserve answers to. I also want to thank the Progressive Indiana Network for organizing this afternoon's event and their ongoing commitment to making sure Hoosier voters have the information they need to make informed decisions. Early voting has begun, and the Indiana's primary election day is May 5th. Whoever wins the primary, that primary will carry the Democratic banner into one of the most consequential midterm elections in modern American history. Your vote in this primary is not a formality. It is a choice about what kind of Democrat this district might send to Washington. Make it count. I'm Rachel Chatham. Thank you, Indiana. Have a good day.